This is Coda Radio, episode 218 for August 15th, 2016. Hi there, welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. Oh, me? My name is Chris, and join us, for some reason, outrageously promptly, every single week. Why, yes, folks, it's Mr. Michael Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Hello.
This Coda Radio is brought to you by Heineken.
It's good. Oh, good. It's going to be one of those episodes.
It's a very special episode.
Man, it's good. You know, we're kind of in a bit of a frenzy today because we had a great guest on last week's show, and then this week he's no longer working for the company.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I was on Coda Radio. Fuck it. I'm out.
I peaked.
That's it for me. Sorry. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, I've peaked. There's nothing left. Something like that.
I don't think that's quite it. But.
No. In fact, why don't we tease that? We're going to be talking a little bit about that just briefly today, and then of course there is some interesting hoopla going around, and we're also going to talk about Mr. Dominic's productivity vampire and an upcoming event he'll be attending. But you know, Mike, what we should really do right off the top. Uh-oh.
Are we in a 70s porno? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to pivot. No, it's the Coda Radio.
Different kind of pivot.
Yeah.
This will be our best rated show if we go down that road.
This is going to be the 217 Coda Radio Challenge follow-up because this is actually a two-week challenge. Yes. And ironically, it's in honor of our guest, Ryan Sipes, former CTO of Mycroft. We want to make a bot using any tech from Mycroft at AI. I saw DMP1CE submitted a really great one already, a Bitcoin price skill. I love that one. Hey, Mycroft, what's the Bitcoin price? That Bitcoin price is $567 right now.
See, I still think Mycroft sounds like the guy who plays Mycroft on Sherlock.
No, you know who? I know who. I'll tell you.
I secretly use Arch Linux.
Mycroft.
Is that him?
That's Popey. That's Popey from Linux Unplugged, Ubuntu podcast. He works at Canonical.
Wait, that's his voice, yeah?
Yeah, he sat down and did a whole batch of reading for the voice recognition, and this is actually an early prototype.
I secretly use Arch Linux.
Are you saying I've paid $160 for Popey in my bedroom? Is that what you're telling me?
I never thought about the fact that if I put this thing in my bedroom,
you will have taken Popey to bed.
Oh no, this changes everything.
I know exactly what kind of skill I'm writing now.
Oh, I got to think about this because this is going to be sort of creepy in a weird way. I mean, I like Popey and all that, but yikes. Yeah, and that version I have there is an early version of it too. They've actually refined it a bit more, so it sounds even better now.
I bet they have.
Yeah. Does anybody if anybody has a link in the chat room to it, I think there's a better voice sample out there of the synthesized Mycroft speech. If you have a link in the chat room, I'd play it for a sec. But so hats off to Ryan. I hope he's on to bigger and better things. I think probably whatever he moves on to, there will be interest and people will follow it.
So are you familiar with the old cowboy movie Shane?
Oh, maybe. It's ringing bells, but not clearly.
Oh, Chris, come on. The cowboy, Shane, he rides off into the sunset at the end. The little kid's like, Shane, come back, Shane.
I'm going to Googs right now. Shane, cowboy.
You're killing me. There is a YouTube clip that you could totally play and then have this DMCA takedown.
Shane, come back. Shane, come back. Oh, I see.
Dad, Papa's got work for you. There you go. There's the boy.
Joey, there's no living with a killing. There's no going back from one.
There's no way I can play that and it's not getting taken down. There's no way.
You've done enough. You can't go any further. But the whole point, in fact, that's the worst part of that clip you could have played.
Really? Well, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of the clip. Right. I could jump ahead and play like another few seconds.
Basically, like Shane chucks deuces, and they're all like, Shane, come back. And he's like, no, I'm out. Very, very much like Ryan Sipes. There you go.
I've never been able to shoot you if you'd have seen
Bye, little Joe.
This is so getting us pulled down.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Now go.
Never even to clear the holster, would he, Shane?
We're never gonna get there. That's great, though.
You're never gonna get there. But that was pretty cute, right? They're never gonna clear the holster, would they, Shane?
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. Oh, that's an interesting, nice analogy. Well, I invited Ryan to come on to Linux Unplugged next Tuesday to give him time to process everything. So I don't know if he'll be able to make it, but I think he will. I'm willing to bet that there's probably more to the story than we know, but it's not really any of our business. And I think now it's just sort of probably a will. I think you just kind of accept that these kinds of transitions happen.
Things happen. It's all good, right?
It's probably not the Coda Radio curse. Probably not.
I don't know.
Full disclaimer to future guests, by the way.
I'm trying to think of our past guests, and I can only think of one who didn't sort of get screwed after going on the show.
Now, hey,
we don't have a lot of guests.
Now, hold on. To be totally fair, and this might be the one you're thinking of, we had the Docker guys on like a year before they got super successful.
That's true. I forgot that we had them on.
Yeah.
It was that long ago.
So, but to be fair, though, I mean, that's got to give us some sort of good interview karma right there.
Well, and the CodeShip guys. All right. So
yeah, CodeShip, sure.
Yeah. All right.
So we either give you the Coda Radio bump, and it can be, or we give you the Coda Radio October surprise. I just don't know which one it's going to be.
Well, and we don't know. I mean, to be fair,
no, I'm totally kidding.
Let's not imply that Ryan got let go, right?
No.
Who knows?
No, actually, that is not my sense of the situation.
Right. That's not my sense either. I read his post, very orderly, and he says he's going to contribute to the GPL code base. So really, no material change for people interested in Mycroft.
Yeah. In fact, I'm reading it here. It says some may be worried about the future, what the future holds for Mycroft, as many tell me they consider me to be the face of the project. However, the project is licensed under the GPL version 3 and will continue regardless of the direction of Mycroft, the company. Additionally, the company will continue to receive leadership from CEO Joshua Montgomery, who is the majority owner. What's that?
Nothing. Keep going.
I thought that was I think there's actually, sometimes when people write these kind of posts, they try to communicate as much as they can without having to be overt and out of order. And so I think, there's potentially some messaging there. The company will continue to receive leadership from the CEO.
There's a
Joshua
separation
Montgomery.
between the open source project and the company.
Yeah, and a very formal declaration of Joshua and his position. When my understanding is they've been longtime friends and they started this effort together. He said, "I'd like to clarify that my work with open source projects is far from over. I have identified some projects to which I plan to lend my time. I will be working to promote these projects and helping build vibrant communities around them," which I think he probably very likely will. What? Oh.
Speaking of open source projects, can I take us on the tangent?
Yes, sir. I am ready.
So the Coda Radio open source Katy Perry player on GitHub.
Sure, of course.
I am proud to say has had its first patch.
Okay, good. What was that patch?
Please go ahead and I forgot the GitHub link, but we'll put it in the show notes. It has the new Katy Perry video Rise. The connection here is I'm hoping that Ryan Sipes writes a Mycroft Katy Perry skill, open source GPL, to bring all of your Katy Perry needs into the Mycroft engine. Well,
this sort of brings us full circle back to the Coda Radio Challenge. It is going for one more week, and the challenge is some sort of skill or something to do with that effect. Mycroft. So there you go. That could be one of them. Continue the Katy Perry meme, and that is the Coda Radio Challenge. So next week will be the wrap up of that challenge. Now, Mike, for your consideration, can I pitch you an idea for the next challenge and just see what you think?
Pitch it away.
So I want to streamline the process of creating one-off podcasts here at the JB1 studio. And there are several examples of things out there that like Pod Publish that Wimpy has created. What I want to create, what I would like is a script that asks for me for the input of the file, like a WAV file that I want to encode. And the input for a video loop file, which would probably be an MP4 file, but something like FFmpeg would understand. And then what I would like is for something that encodes a video file where the video loops for as long as the audio lasts. So that way you can quickly create something you can distribute as a video from an audio show. And then that could extend from there, like automatically uploading it to YouTube, spitting out an MP3 with ID3 information attached to it. So I think really the crux is using FFmpeg and like 3 or 4 other command line open source utilities to create this script. It should be easy. There's lots of examples you can find on Stack Exchange.
So, oh God. So when you first of all, you're like every horrible client ever.
You're welcome.
But when you say one-off, what do you mean? Like specials? Like what is? I guess I don't understand what a one-off podcast is.
Well, it could be a secret project that I don't want to talk about, or it could also be one-off shows that will we go to an event and we get some audio interview with somebody, and I want to release it for people to listen to in like the RSS feed
as like its own feed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But it could also be something that's ongoing weekly.
I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're doing the Windows Action Show without me, I'm gonna be very pissed off. Or the Mac Power Hour, also pissed off.
Oh, yeah.
Letting you know. I'd watch yourself on those secret projects, buddy.
How about one show? Oh, this is actually a good idea, so just don't steal it. How about one show that's all of those shows, and each segment is like, so first segment's the Windows one, and you bring on the Windows people. Second segment's the Mac one, you bring on the Mac people. Okay, third segment, everybody's on at the same time.
I have that show. 2 of them, actually, by Paul Thurrott. And I just want to buy the man a beer.
Yeah.
And, like, tell him it's going to be okay.
I know, yeah. That one, the Windows one would be rough after a while.
It's rough. I mean, we don't need to talk about depression here, but
he does seem a little down, doesn't he?
It's been over a year now,
dude. Man. It's been since Windows 8. It's been since Windows 8.
It's been a long right.
It's been a long time.
When did Sinofsky take over? It was right when Sinofsky took over. He's been like, it'll be all right, right, guys.
So, what do you think? Is my project Coder Radio Challenge worthy? Because I think
you're all right. Yeah. It's a little tough, right? Because
you basically got to have a little FFmpeg knowledge, but it's pretty well documented too.
Well, but the person running it has to have the prerequisites installed, right? The command line utilities.
Yeah, that is true.
So, I mean...
And it'd probably have to be packaged up in some way for me to get it, like a tarball or AUR.
Like a Docker Compose. I mean, that's probably what I would recommend. Although one issue I've been having...
Or a Snap actually would be really interesting, because they're supposedly with Snapcraft not too hard to...
That's much too cool for me. I'm sorry.
Then I can install it on all my machines.
Yeah, see... But that, again, that's more work, right? Either doing a Docker Compose image or doing a Snapcraft. What do they call it? What is the official name for, like, the object name for a snap? You know what I mean?
I think it's a snap. And then you have...
It's a snap?
Yeah,
so
and then...
a snap?
You have YAML files which describe all what the snap is, all the dependencies.
No, I know, like, the technology. The package is called Snapcraft, right? But
no, the package creator is called Snapcraft. The actual packages are snaps. Right. So
I'm shipping you a snap.
Correct.
That's how they say it?
I believe so.
All these kids. So cute.
The Snapcraft thing is actually, it's really fascinating. Wimpy has already published Pod Publish as a snap. And Pod Publish is like a Python script which already does everything I've just said and way more. But what it does is it inputs an image still and extends that image still as long as the audio goes, and then produces an MKV ready for YouTube upload. I'd like to be able to embed video, because that's more visually interesting than just one still image while you're listening to a YouTube video. That's kind of obnoxious. So I wanted something that's like a video loop. So Pod Publish is already created by Wimpy, which people could find online, which is open source and available as a snap.
Okay.
So you could even look at his snap. No, if you actually want me to use it, maybe.
Well, only because I'm the guy who's going to get the emails asking for clarification. This would have to be. A snap.
Somebody else might be able to snap it up for us too. But because I'm going to use it on Ubuntu, Fedora, and Arch, a lot of Arch, probably would be easiest just to do a snap.
Gotcha. So you really want a snap
or an AUR package. Or I could probably enlist the help of somebody to snap it up if that's too much. But I'd be curious to get somebody's input on that too, just to see what that's like, how realistic that is.
I've looked at the whole snap thing. It doesn't look bad, but I know there's some fragmentation there with like Fedora or whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So to be clear, the current challenge still stands for one more week. I'm just I'm just sort of saying this would be something.
So to be clear, right, the Mycroft challenge is quote unquote due on the 22nd, right, next Monday, or rather the Sunday before that. The following challenge would be August 29th.
And I'll definitely throw in some JB swag for the winner or something like that to,
Wait, can I win?
Sure.
I want swag. Wait, whoa, hang on.
I would like a percentage of that swag. Can you send some swag this way?
Hey, Mr. Fisher, that's a lot of nice swag you got there. It'd be a shame if something, I don't know, would have happened to your swag. All right, let's do the show, Chris. We're out of our goddamn minds.
Yeah.
Snap is like a drug.
I actually blame Ryan. I blame Ryan
on his like Peace out. Going to Fiji, bitches.
You know, you remember? I think your co-host Chris may have been sniffing some blood in the water last week on my line of questioning that we aborted because
the one that I yelled at you for. One that I was like, Ugh.
I get a sense that there is an open source friction component to this departure. Is my sense.
Based on what? Nothing? Is it just based on nothing?
Sources familiar with the matter.
Oh. Okay, Fox News.
You like
so
that?
Your third cousin told you that? What is that? Sources familiar with the matter.
That's all right. I'm just saying.
Hang on. What's... I have to come on Unfiltered this week.
Yeah, you should.
And just play you as one of the bullshit journalists.
Yeah, okay, all right, sure. Yeah, play my clip back from Coder Radio.
This asshole's just making things up.
That's good. What is it? Probably just some source on Twitter that it's not even verified. Rita Katz is my source.
It's like the Twitter account, not Chris Fisher. Yeah.
The Site Intelligence Group is where I heard that from.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Although it's not the Cato Institute, then you're okay.
Hey, so there was something that happened last week that I didn't even think to talk to you about, but I actually would really like to pick your brain about it. And that's Apple's new bug bounty program that's not like anybody else's bug bounty program, but still kind of seems legit.
That's a radical change from the old position of eat shit and die.
Yeah, and did you see that there was an interview with Eddie Q and Craig Federighi, I think it was, and they talked about why they do open betas for iOS now?
I did see. I did not watch the interview though. I don't know.
So I just read a quote, and the quote was such that they learned from Maps and how bad that was, that a team of 50 people wasn't enough, and that they needed to have it in the hands of a whole bunch of users. And so, what I think is interesting is that that to me actually kind of reflects that they really got it, because it seems that's a huge radical shift for Apple. If you recall Apple from a couple years ago, they would slap NDAs down on anybody that got a beta, and they would go after journalists.
Right. That was, remember I think the first 2 years we did the show, I could not talk about the Apple stuff post WWDC.
Right. Yeah. And that's a pretty big change for them. And what I think is interesting about it is they could have gone locked down and small. They could have just done they could have, honestly, Mike, they could have just made Maps a standalone app in the App Store and published betas for people to test if they really just wanted to get more map data input. And I think people would jump all over an Apple Maps beta to do that. I think that would have been really a big hit for them. I think it shows you that they actually zoomed out and got the big picture and went, oh shit, there could be a lot of things in there we're not catching anymore. There's just too many users. We've got millions and millions and millions of users that get affected when we make the smallest change. And they actually got it in like a legitimate way. Mm. So now we arrive at the news that they've launched this rather interesting bug bounty program. They announced it at Black Hat, which is sort of historical on its own, to tell you the truth. The head of Apple's security engineering and architecture announced the company will pay rewards of up to $200,000 for 5 classes of bugs in iOS and iCloud. Apple will pay $100,000 to researchers who can extract confidential data from iOS Secure Enclave processor, $50,000 to researchers who report code execution flaws that provide kernel privileges, and also if you get iCloud account information, and $25,000 to researchers with vulnerabilities that allow sandbox processes to break out. I don't see a lot in here for the Mac, actually, but some people are calling this a pretty smart approach, a slow approach, and it's a private bug bounty program. It's invite only. However, there also seems to be a little wiggle room where if you actually found something super serious and you worked with Apple in the right sequence, they might retroactively include you in the bug bounty program. And so I noticed that you tweeted about this as a sort of a big shift, and I was curious to get your thoughts.
Well, it is a big shift, right? I mean, Apple has been pretty notorious for, I don't know how to say this, but like really trying to control the narrative, I guess, of their beta software. When we started the show X many years ago, right, I was unable to discuss the WWDC betas,
right,
because I was actually under NDA, right? And it's not like I had some special deal with Apple. I was like every other schmuck who went to the conference or, listened to the video.
Yeah, if you don't want your developer access pulled.
If you'd like to be able to be in this business, shut up.
Yeah, you want your apps to make money?
Right. It's pretty nice apps you got there. Hey, something happened to them. Why is that a theme this episode already? It's very 1920s. The other thing was like they've been notoriously bad at treating security researchers or, white hat hackers who say, hey, I just broke into the iPhone. They're like, great, we're going to report to the FBI. See ya.
Right.
They've been pretty aggressive. And, the GeoHot kid that they tried to have arrested, right, for the jailbreaking thing a couple years ago.
Yeah, but they also have hired some of those guys.
Well, there was a shift, right? And I think a lot of it was the end of the Jobs era.
Yeah.
Tim Cook, I think, is a much more practical fellow. Or Jobs maybe a little more defensive.
And it could be more like the people down working closer to the actual OS level have been saying, we need more people testing this. We need this help.
Right.
And then it's filtering up to management because they're like, okay, what can we... Do you remember the narrative just a year ago that Apple's quality is down in the dumps? And
what was it that Marco Arment wrote that got all kinds of
something about losing the functional high ground?
Yeah, Apple's losing the functional high ground or software, something like that. Because the iOS 8.1 rollout was kind of crap, right? It was broken in weird ways. I had the issue where the phone.app on my iPhone would freeze constantly, making me unable to hang up phone calls, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And there were a number of those issues that people were reporting. I am actually still of the opinion that maybe they'll change my mind at the end of September when they release, hopefully, new MacBook Pros. But they've definitely gone, Apple's always been criticized, right, for being design form over function, design over functionality. Yeah. I think iOS 8 was probably the worst example of that.
So what's the current wait, iOS 9 is the current iOS, right?
Yeah, like a 9.3 or something, yeah.
And it seems like the complaints have pretty much simmered down since iOS 9 came out.
iOS 9 was like a Snow Leopard style release from 8, right? It's a very not much new, a lot of QA stuff.
Mm-hmm. More sharing, more APIs.
A lot of stuff for developers too, right?
Yeah. It's interesting, Mike, because I'm on the Nexus 6P and I'm running Android 6.01 with the latest August patches, and I'm many months into this now, and I'm starting to run into problems now. So I would say the phone was damn near flawless when I first got it, but now I have problems like my Bluetooth speakers connect, and then the audio never goes out the speaker, and I have to turn Bluetooth off on my phone, turn the speaker off, turn things back on. Same with pairing to my truck, which was never a problem before. Now has issues. My multitasking button, when I tap the multitasking button to see my open applications, I just get a blank screen with text that says your recent screens appear here. I'm actually not able to do multitasking until I reboot, and now I'm having to reboot every couple of days to make that work. So it's been interesting to see my sort of Android experience devolve as I've used it. And the other thing that's kind of curious about it is I've pretty much not really installed any new apps.
Sure.
Since I installed Pokemon Go to play with it a couple of times, but that's about it for months. But yet something's still happening where it seems to be getting less and less reliable for me. Another example is today my alarm didn't go off.
It's funny you should say that because I just updated my 5X here and I just confirmed it while you were going through your issues to 6.01.
Yeah.
And I'm having an issue now where I almost constantly play, oddly enough, Apple Music on my Android phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I have an account, family account with the missus,
mm-hmm.
Audible or Pocket Cast. And I'm having an issue now since I've updated where the audio from any of those apps does not stop or worse, resumes when I take a phone call in the middle of the phone call.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've had that too.
So answer a call for work because I have my Vonage line forward to my cell. And then all of a sudden Katy Perry will be like, baby, you're a fire.
Oh my gosh. I had, yesterday when I got off a call, I had Pocket Cast and NPR One start playing.
Yeah. Yeah, same problem. I mean, it's not just Apple Music. To be clear, it is any audio app, Audible, Pocket Cast, Apple Music. Those are the three I use on my phone. If I take a phone call, I have like a 50-50 shot of it randomly resuming during the call.
So I guess this is neither here nor there. Just a slight tangent,
It's all crap. Don't worry, Apple.
Yeah, really, I guess. And I also just wanted to booknote our bug bounty program with just the tech snapper in me has to mention that, but the day Apple was already outbid when they launched this program. There are brokers out there that will pay hundreds of thousands of dollars more than Apple for serious rootkits of the iPhone. There is a massive market out there. There has been $1 million bounties many times now. I think we've even covered some of them here on the show in the past. So $200,000 is definitely great to do. You think about it. If you go with the Apple Bug Bounty program, that's going to be a pretty legitimate feather in your cap to say I got a big payout by Apple. Even one of the smaller payouts is a pretty legitimate feather on your resume. This, though, could pay you significantly more. You don't get credit in legitimate circles, but you'll get credit and quite a bit of money. So it's a really tight line Apple has to walk. It's not as easy as it sounds. And so they didn't go the HackerOne route, which was really popular right now, which is a community of bidders and people who are collecting on and publishing exploits. And there's a whole broker and mediator system. And HackerOne's getting a lot of popularity, but Apple wanted to do their own thing. And I'm kind of curious to see how it goes for them. And I'm really glad they're doing something.
Yeah, I think, at Apple scale, not having this type of program is just kind of silly.
Yeah, it's good they did. Hey, before we go on, let's take a moment and thank DigitalOcean. Use our promo code CoderDigital, and you get a $10 credit over at DigitalOcean. You just apply it to your account. DigitalOcean is great. It's really simple cloud hosting, dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to get started. If you want to do a base Linux system or a complete application stack, they make it really easy. And if you want to do a month-to-month plan, $5 a month is the starting. $5 a month. Now remember, we have our promo code, CoderDigital, give you a $10 credit. You can get that $5 machine for 2 months absolutely free, or take advantage of their hourly pricing. I love their 3 cents an hour rig. It's tons of power. It's my go-to one now all the time. I've really found it to be the perfect balance of price and performance. And now that I can, the block storage, now that I can attach it to block storage, game changer. 3 cents an hour, and I can attach it to highly available SSD-backed block storage. And they've got data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, and Germany. If any of this ever feels like it's over your head, they've got great documentation. And if you're an expert user, you don't even need to use their beautiful, beautiful interface. You can take advantage of their straightforward API. With a great interface, a great API, and fantastic documentation, the only thing left is for you to try it at DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code CoderDigital. Thank you, DigitalOcean, for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. So, Mike, you call it Slack-pocalypse now.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I hate Slack. I love Slack. All right, go ahead. You in the doc, you have a great lead into this. I hate to interrupt you.
Oh, do I? Okay, so, Mr. Dominic, when it comes to Slack, I am of mixed opinions, but Mike starts with Slack is reducing my productivity and almost certainly having a material negative effect on my day-to-day performance as well as my job enjoyment. Things started so well with Slack and I still I love the vision of reducing email, but something's changed. Something's been twisted. And I think this is interesting because I have a very zen approach to this sort of Slack Mattermost group collaboration chat that has served me. But I also hear the other side a lot. Slack is a productivity vampire. It's stealing my day. I've definitely had that experience. I'm only a member of like 2 teams, though.
So, yeah, I'm a member of like 8 teams. That's just one thing. All right, so let's go over the whole post, right? Because I think there is going to be a very big difference in the role Slack plays in my life than your life.
Mm.
If you take a look, if you scroll down, I'd say that halfway through that post, right where there's, I don't know, I can't see the video right now. Yeah, right there. So I thought it'd be a good infographic. I put in what effectively is my normal Slack feed if I go away for about an hour and a half, or I have to jump on a call for
like a screenshot of what you might expect. Yeah.
Build ETA, which spelled incorrectly because it always is, right? Hey, how are we looking on that build? Just wanted to follow up. Hey, you there? You there? Hey, saw you moved a ticket. Can I get an ETA on that build? Question. Hello? You there? Slack has become the micromanagement tool of choice.
Oh.
And I think we used to talk a couple years ago a lot about like, remote work, right? And how remote work could be made to work and be productive.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of pushback on that, right? You remember Marissa Mayer, revoked everybody's remote working passes, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of folks would write in saying, hey, I'm a PM and I would never let remote working go because I need to be able to monitor that people aren't browsing Facebook and looking at porn or whatever.
Right.
And Slack has effectively solved that problem for those people in a way that I think is horrible.
So like you take on the project and then they invite you to their Slack team. So you're getting
I mean, it's worse on like subcontracting deals, but yeah.
So it's like the go-to, like, all right, now that we're working on this thing, this is how we're going to chat instead of email or something like that.
But there's a big difference between chat and email, right? Where email, if I get back to you, and this is one of the points I make in the article, or the post rather, it is totally socially acceptable for me to get back to you at 5:00 at the end of the day, right? Because I'm actually trying to get your work done. With Slack, there's like a 5-minute grace period there. Like maybe I'm in the men's room. Do you know what I mean? That's about it. And I don't know. I mean, to me, Slack and Chris, I'm very skeptical of Agile. To me, Slack encourages all the worst excesses of Agile. Because here's one thing, right? Every team I've been using Slack with, I mean, and we use Slack internally at Buccaneer too, and I would say that is the only real appropriate use for Slack is internal communication. Because, if you're actually somebody's boss, ride them all day long, right? Like, if that's how you think you need to manage people, go ahead. Here come the Slack police ready to take it away.
Yeah, they're coming right now. They're going to shut you down.
Like, I also don't believe that daily stand-ups are good, right? Because there is no amount of work I can get done in a day that is going to be impressive to you if you are a non-technical person and you need to see UI changes, unless I'm only working on UI stuff. But at some point, someone has to write caching or, fix this bug that's annoying.
So I guess
I don't.
It sounds like what you have here is not really a technology problem. I mean, because this would be an issue. Wouldn't this be an issue if you were using Telegram or you were using?
Oh yeah. So it's not Slack specific,
HipChat,
right?
I mean, how is this any different?
I love analogies, right?
Yeah.
Cocaine is bad.
Sure.
Slack has managed to solve the cocaine problem by inventing crack. It's not good. I mean, Slack was awesome until they let you add people externally to your team. That is probably the worst idea I've ever heard. And, I don't know about you, but if somebody doesn't get something done in a week, I will just fire them, right? And that's the end of it. I don't feel the need to like hour to hour check in on people.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a personality flaw where when and people who've worked for me know this. If I'm checking in on you, it means I think you're not doing your work or that you're struggling, right? But let's be honest, it means I think you're not doing your work. So when I have someone check in on me, I almost see that as like a slight, as some sort of, yeah.
Okay, so so here's I guess I want to just take a second and I want to explain to people there is the why ever Slack crowd out there, and I just want to address it really super briefly, and that is for us at the workflow, things like Mattermost and Slack work really well at JB because a lot of what we're sharing is clips, files, Twitter links, and news stories, and the way that and Google Docs actually. And so the way that Slack is able to pre-fetch and process information, embed stuff right in the chat stream, makes 3 or 4 of us very productive at a time to work on one show. And that is super nice for us. Also, it's a great spot for people that have like production questions on how things should be done on the back end. I treat Slack though and I was just talking about this yesterday off air with Noah, I think. I treat Slack as the place I go when I am mentally ready to answer people's questions. And so if you work with me and you want the best possible response from me and it's work related, you should put it in Slack. If it's urgent and you want to talk to me, Telegram's fine, but you're going to get me perhaps in the middle of a show, in the middle of prepping for the live show. You could get me at a very bad time, and I might not be in the state you want me to fully think about your question and answer it. So I have treated Slack as sort of like this thing that I jump into and I answer the threads and then I jump out.
So Slack is almost like your assistant. It takes your calls, writes up a message, and you'll respond when you respond.
I suppose so.
No, I don't mean that as a joke. I mean that like really,
that sounds like what the other reason I like it a lot is I really prefer its do not disturb system, and I would love every messaging platform to adopt this tomorrow. And that is perfect for working with my colleagues because I trust them to know if something's important or not. And so if I set it to do not disturb, the first thing it says is, hey, this person is set to do not disturb, and they'll see this message when they return. But if it's super important, I could push it to their phone, click this button. And that is great for urgent production stuff.
That's a great point, right? So that is the state difference, and Slack has that state. One issue I have,
it's very blunt though. There's no variance of it. Like it can't just be I'm busy, but you couldn't contact me if it's important. It's just I'm totally unavailable, and you can take the risk, or I'm available.
See that's the issue I have with Slack. I'm either away or I'm there. I want a status that I could show to these people that says I am here, but I am busy. And the sick part about this to me is, you remember a couple of years ago, I was a big HipChat user.
Mm-hmm.
HipChat had that, right? It was a do not disturb mode. It was, I am here, I am active. It shows you that I'm at my desk, but it's also telling you that I, at least in my opinion, feel like I'm too busy to talk to you. And that doesn't need to be like I'm phrasing it as an aggressive thing here. But the reality is, in my mind, if I'm a client, I want my work done, right? And even though a status update right now when I want it might make me feel good, the truth is, at the end of the week, I'd rather have my sprint finished. Where I think Slack, it's either you're not online at all, and then people start messaging you, hey, are you there? Are you there? Are you there?
Yeah, they go to the backup methods, yeah.
Right, they don't see that green light and they get nervous. Or you're there and, you're available and people want to talk to you and tell you. There's a time for that, right? There's a time for client management and all that kind of stuff, but not when we're deploying something, right? That is not the time. The other thing I don't love about Slack is, one of the great things about being a shop is you can hire customer service people to do some of the relationship management for you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Slack totally shoots that in the face because no one wants the gatekeepers, so to speak, in the Slack channel, right? Creates a lot of direct communication with your development team that you may or may not want. Yeah. Well, and you may not want it because it's not productive, right? And you don't want in 3 months to hear, oh, you guys didn't get anything done and you build this all this time. To be fair, this is not me not wanting to talk to people. I actually want people who work with me to get value and to be happy when they're paying invoices, right? And you may feel good that you're getting instant updates on my status, but that's not value, right? That doesn't mean anything. This is the same issue I have with daily stand-ups. If your project is of any significance, there's not a whole lot I can do in a day that's visible that I can show you in a daily build on a daily stand-up.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just, this is my old man curmudgeonness coming out and saying that this Agile thing is kind of snake oil. But it's kind of snake oil, right? I mean, making commitments within a 36 to 48 hour period is crazy to me.
Can I tell you, I think what you're suffering from is this really kind of rushed transition that we've all done, and not everyone's arrived at the same place at the same time. So I have an extended family member that had a birthday. It wasn't like a major milestone birthday, but I think it was like maybe like the 53rd birthday or something, 54, I'm not sure. And we sent them a message because we were traveling on the road at the time. And we sent them a message, just happy birthday, sent them a few photos, thinking of you on your birthday. And the family member never wrote back. And when we got back in town, we realized that they were offended that we sent them a text message for their birthday. That was, in their estimation, not genuine, real communication. While everybody and I thought, that was that probably wasn't sufficient. But of course, we weren't really in a position to make a phone call either. And so I think what has happened is people view different types of communication with different sets of expectations. Some people view email with the expectation that it's almost as instant as an IM, while others treat email as something that might take several days to hear back from. And each client you deal with has different sets of expectations. And the same is true on Telegram chat, the same is true on Skype chat, and the same is true on Hangouts and Slack. And the problem is with Slack is they didn't really solve this problem. Ironically, I think Skype may have solved it the best with many different states and abilities to communicate what your availability is.
Yeah.
And ironically, it just never really took off from there. And Slack is just too blunt. And the problem is you have different expectations with different people. And I don't know how you message what they should expect from you in terms of your availability without seeming rude, because then you're going up against what they expect.
I mean, I am the most anti-open communication guy I think I know, and I'm never rude when someone interrupts me. Right? I have the conversation, even if it's about what kind of pizza they had at lunch, and I hate it. But I have it and I'm pleasant. Although you make a great point. I used to have an add-in to Skype that was like a Pomodoro timer that would actually tell people working on, programming.
Or listening to all those cheeky things. Yeah.
Right. But like if it says programming, leave me alone. Right.
Yeah.
And that was like an unspoken rule that kept everybody at bay.
Yeah.
Another great side conversation here is Enda Cray in the chat is giving me some heat about the contracts. Like you wrote the contract, but you have to remember, a lot of developers, a lot of guys like me who would do dev shops, most of our business is subcontracting.
I would also argue that the issue primarily is these tools come along and you sort of jump on them to improve productivity, and then everybody gets into it and you realize each individual has a different set of expectations. So even when it seems like communication with the project lead at the company is probably a good idea. And if they have a Slack channel already dedicated to the project you're working on, it's probably a good idea so you can get looped in on that and see the past information, get relevant data, be included on conversations about it. That seems on the face of it like a great idea. The problem is you have no idea what everybody else in that thread expects from you in terms of availability and how long it's going to take you to reply to things. I don't know. What are you going to write in your contract? Avoid as much communication as possible? There's no way to structure that doesn't look kind of shady.
Right. And I don't know. Again, this might be a curmudgeon thing, but I really don't understand like why the twice monthly or every 2 week or even weekly call. Like, I hated conference calls, but they were a hell of a lot more productive because you know what? If 2 weeks go by and we sent you a demo and there's probably something to discuss, and maybe you don't like the demo. Maybe you do like the demo. More likely you like some things but don't like others. And there's actually a fruitful conversation that can be had. Where with this new daily or even with Slack, like hourly kind of stuff, I'm sorry, man, but it's just not how I work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think you can build anything significant on a 1 day time scale. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither was your app.
Yeah, especially if it's something that's really important to you, right? If it's something, yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, if your app is like, the 18th Uber clone, you can go buy a shell of an Uber app right now for $2,000. And it's, I don't know. I mean, there's a larger conversation I've been wanting to have for a couple weeks about Agile, and I felt that Slack was a good way into it. Where the original point in my understanding of Agile was to remove unnecessary ceremony from the project management process, right? To let developers be more productive. And what I'm finding is like I actually took on Pluralsight one of their PMP prep courses. Those who don't know, the PMP is a project management professional certification. Whatever happened to removing ceremony? Oh my God, this is like the worst thing I've ever seen. And it makes all the crazy PMs I've ever worked with make a ton of sense because they were taught that if they have these artifacts, that they will not be accountable. And it's all about
God, yes.
It's about avoiding accountability. And listen,
yes, it is.
When people talk to me about accountability and transparency, I hate that. You know what? Transparency is not a right. You have a right to get your product, not for me to be transparent in how I did it. Because transparency often leads to problems. And all this PMP crap, and this was like a 20-hour course I took. It's all about being transparent with the client, but measuring individual developer performance. And kind of the unspoken asterisk is because if the project goes to shit, which most projects are going to, you have one guy you can blame, fire, and then say, "Hey, we fired the guy who sucked. Sorry." Really, like, I don't know. Almost like we're going to create all these artifacts, these theaters of productivity to show that work was done, that when things go bad, you can't say anything. But isn't the actual development work an artifact of that? Saying, listen, you had a budget. You exceeded that budget. Sorry. Right? Like, there is a longer conversation about like scope creep. I personally think that scope creep is the, do we want to dive into it? Should we? It's your call, Fisher.
I think we could. I think we
have enough time. I think
we could. Yeah, I think we could do it. I think we should also maybe we'll stop and do a little thank you over at Linux Academy, and then we'll continue on. Because then we can just clear the way, and it just take however long it takes. It takes. We know. So how about a little ceremony before we talk about it?
Let's do it.
Let's visit.
Oh God!
Yeah, you like what I did there?
Get your Gantt chart, Chris. Get it.
LinuxAcademy.com/coders is where you go to support the show. That's the way you vote for continuing the Coder Radio program. March on, my friends. Your vote does matter at linuxacademy.com/coders. Now, Linux Academy is everything you need to learn and get your hands-on experience with the entire Linux stack. Self-paced in-depth video courses for every cloud, DevOps topic you could possibly dream of. Downloadable comprehensive study guides. You can choose your Linux distribution and it changes the courseware and the virtual machines that it spins up. Hands-on scenario-based labs so you get real experience. Instructor mentoring is available when you need it. Learning plans that fit your time frame and availability. Adaptable learning plans. Note cards that are forked by the community and made even better. A community full of Jupiter Broadcasting members. They got iOS and Android apps so you can study whenever you've got a chance to grab your mobile device of choice. The study tools are really nice, like podcast type things you can listen to, personal notebooks and tools to help you study. A great dashboard that gives you a real easy overview of how much work you have ahead of you. Makes it simple to break down big topics into understandable chunks. They've got great courseware on AWS, OpenStack, Azure, and even more coming very soon. Check it out at linuxacademy.com/coders. That's linuxacademy.com/coders. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Now, what did you say about Agile? It allows project managers to defer responsibility. What did you say?
Yeah, I think it was to, what did I say? Yeah, to displace or defer accountability is the word I used.
Yeah, boy, that is, when I get into a system where I can smell that's what's going on, which happens a lot in companies of 200 people or more, or even 100 people or more. Even smaller companies, it can happen, but it really is almost systemic when you have 100, 200 people. Nobody wants to be accountable for failure. And that's one of the reasons they go to contractors, is because the contractor is the easy. The contractor being accountable for failure means nobody in the business has to lose their job. Nobody has a ding on their next review. Nobody had to learn a lesson because the contractor screwed up.
Well, and you have a lot more leeway with the contractor, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot easier to ride them, too.
Right, it's a lot easier to stiff them, or you can't not pay your employees.
But a lot of times, what do you suppose the number one element is that causes the client to be dissatisfied in the long run? Like there is a common repeating theme that always seems to happen.
So it's all about expectations, right?
Absolutely.
Now this is funny because I am slightly younger than you, but I feel like just based on the technology curve, I'm at the end of the curve you came in. No, really.
You're welcome.
We're still in the same band, but I'm at the very end, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably very likely.
I don't know what you were taught when you were super junior, but what I was taught was scope creep isn't really a scope problem; it's a client communication problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
If we are, and this is when I worked at that Java marketing shop, if we are not hitting the client's expectation, it means we are not communicating to them what we're doing and the value that we're providing. Well, no one says that anymore. That's old thinking.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That seems to just be common sense.
I just talked to, in fact, some very high-priced, a fellow named Jason Swank, some high-priced, what do you call that? Like digital marketing consultant? Like
business?
He's an advisor to shops, basically, like Agile design shops.
An advisor, I think, is probably the perfect description.
Yeah, a guy who sold the shop. Like, he's actually done it. It's not,
Yeah, so it's like they hire him and like he consults with them in like a vision advisory leadership role.
And, I talked to him about some of these issues of, historically, I had a very hard time with what I would call scope creep.
Yeah.
And I said, we're really good. We have a base camp. I'm willing to get on calls personally, right? We do all this stuff. And it was a video call. He just sat there shaking his head. Saying,
What?
You're living in the past.
What? What are you talking about?
You're out of date.
No.
Yes. Scope creep is not a client communication problem. Scope creep, and this is not my position, I don't think this is true, is a sales problem. So I talked to two other guys like him, but he's the most prominent. And they all said the same thing, right? It's a sales problem, meaning that the projects are set up to fail from the signing of the contract. Now, what do you think about that, Chris?
I don't understand.
All right, let me dig into it. Right, so
because nobody wants to lose money on either end of the deal.
Well, let's unpack that. Right, obviously, no one goes into a contract thinking they're going to lose money. It seems so. He had a position. He had two things to say. One, you really, he's very much against hourly projects, which I thought was interesting. Which is funny because I've been trying to push everybody to hourly because hourly guarantees I can't lose money, right?
Yeah, it seems like because if they end work, then
invoice more than I pay people. I mean, that's the simplest thing in the planet. But there is another side of it of, a lot of larger shops, and this is something maybe I've missed in the transition in the last, 10 years plus.
Okay.
A lot of shops will literally sell you anything at any price and will not charge you for discovery. Do we have to define discovery? I feel like the audience probably knows what we mean by that.
Yeah, and in the sense of, sometimes you have to figure out how much work something is, and sometimes that is work itself.
Right, and the problem is that, a little shop like Buccaneer, we simply can't afford to do that for free.
Mm-hmm.
So we generally charge about $2,000 for that. I'm actually running a promo. Plug.
Nice. Where do they go?
They can just go to buccaneer.io, fill out a contact form, or just email me. It's $500. We're doing it basically for free, just a little bit to cover part of the cost, to figure out what the true cost of a project is. So, fine, I'm sold on that, right? That's the right way to do it.
Seems very honest. It seems very honest.
Seems very honest. It seems very forthright. Looks at me and says, Mike, I don't know, man. That still doesn't make sense. What?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about, brother? What you talking about?
He's just saying you just sell it regardless and just make it work. Like you cram it in, go hire somebody from a third world country. Like what is he implying by that?
That's interesting. I didn't take it that way. So what I thought he was saying is that, there was an app gold rush, right? And, one kind of uncovered story of this is all the consulting shops that failed at the end of the gold rush, because it turns out that they weren't doing things in a profitable way, and they were kind of just funding old projects with new projects, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
It turns out that, and this is pretty obvious, you can't do a fixed bid project and have either the vendor or the client be happy without doing a discovery phase, right? We all agree on that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's why I think your approach seems pretty straightforward and honest.
Right. No one's going to do a money-losing project forever, right? Because at some point, the lawsuit is less money than doing the work. Really, unfortunately, that's the reality of these types of projects.
Well, and even a smaller scope outcome could be your name starts to get tarnished as you fail to deliver time after time because things are too costly.
It's almost not relevant, though. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I will say that the gold rush allowed a lot of people to do a lot of bad things that weren't sustainable.
See, in my line of work, people would, contact other businesses you worked with and say, well, how did he do? So that was always kind of a thing that you wanted to leave on good terms because my clients would contact my past clients as references.
See, and you have just hit on all three of their major point. These apps are like no other IT service that's ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
They are ephemeral and they don't last. It's almost like selling Beanie Babies. So it really doesn't matter as long as you don't lose money on the project. Now, I don't agree with this. This was the sales guru's advice. Their advice was basically close anything at any reasonable price and then document the entire project so you can defend yourself when there is a conflict. Emphasis on the when there is a conflict, right? Historically, I've tried to avoid those conflicts or mitigate those conflicts. But it just shows you that, you have two people coming into the relationship here. One, the client who never, ever wants to sign an open-ended contract to be billed hourly. You have the vendor who's absolutely, if they have half a brain, going to open a corporation and make sure that you can't sue them personally. And, is never, ever going to agree to work until you're happy. So there has to be some scope, right? Some end to the project. Well, what is that? Well, you have a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know about you, Chris. I've seen lots of dev contracts, and almost none of them define the work to be done correctly or completely.
Yeah, that's again why I thought your approach was pretty good, because you have the best shot of it at least. And
right, but I have found that the delta between $1,000 and $20,000 in terms of people willing to spend money is less than between $100 and $500. You cannot get someone to spend money on something that they don't see value in.
Yeah.
And I find it shocking that people don't see value in proper technical documentation, wireframes, and a click-through demo of their app. But sure enough, the 3 gurus told me, you're insane. No one wants to spend money on that. So how does one manage scope without doing that kind of discovery phase? And the answer, and this is what really disturbs me, the answers I've gotten from the so-called experts is you make them sign releases and you legally protect yourself with NDAs so they can never complain about you.
That doesn't sound like a business that's very fun to run.
That does not sound like a good time, right? And although I have to say my experience running dev shops has been, there's more of that than you'd like to admit, right? There's more conflict, especially with fixed scope. But where the hell did we go wrong? Because you know what? I remember, late 2000s, being, very early 2000s, maybe late 90s, sitting through where somebody did like a 2-month documentation phase before any work began on a project. And I'm pretty sure the firm was paid for that.
Oh, you know where things went wrong. Oh, you know.
Oh, tell me where. So this is not me pitching from a soapbox saying I have the answers. This is
the
me being totally lost.
Your industry is a victim of a larger social change that happened.
It's Reaganomics.
No, what it is that in the 2000s and beyond, really 7, 8, 9 years ago, computers became consumer gadgets. Okay. And it no longer was the 1 in 1,000 geek. 1,000 people was a geek that knew how to operate this strange computer, often with a text interface. It became something that could go in your pocket. It became something portable. It became something that was Bondi Blue. And it became less of a... So here's how I honestly feel, Mike. I honestly feel that plumbers and electricians, their trades are considered harder and more specialized than app developers. I think a lot of times businesses treat those professions with much more respect than they treat the developer or the IT consultant, because there is more mystique placed to their skill set, because people have no idea how the electricity works in their building. They have no idea how the water works in their building. They don't know how any of that stuff operates. It's so far beyond them. But in modern times now, every couple of people in the group thinks that they know how to get the latest app, and they know how to tweet, and they know how these things work, and to them it doesn't seem like a big deal. So there's not the same value. It's not placed on the same pedestal. At a social level, it is a cultural thing. We don't place that work at the same level that we place other things, especially like doctors and people that can actually operate on the body and things like that. Now, hold on. Yeah. I would argue the creation of Uber, the developers of Uber, have contributed something to society that is also of equal importance. So I wouldn't downplay the contributions of developers to society, but we don't reflect upon it that way. We look at it as something that is not as important as some of these other esteemed professions. It's considered good solid work by intelligent people, but it's not considered something that is so far beyond the average person that it deserves some sort of respect that we give to perhaps other more higher end esteemed professions.
Okay. I mean, we are not talking about, World War I here, right? I just want to say, when I'm talking about the distant past, it's really not that long ago.
I know, but the transition happened. So just like the same thing with going from conventional communications to texting and it all happened in like the last 8 years.
All right, let's just pick an arbitrary year, right? The last time I remember seeing a really good, robust D&D done, I would say is like 2007. Let's just pick 07, right? As maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but let's just say that's our arbitrary year to argue based on. What happened between 07 and 16 where people said, nah, we really don't need to know what we're building before you build it. We just, we're going to be, is it agile? Because honestly, this all correlates to the rise of agile, right? Is it that we can just micromanage people and hope they give us what we want?
I think as the technology got commoditized, the industry around it
but
twisted.
Chris, if I told you, build me a car, right? If I'm like, Chris, you're awesome, build me an RV. I want Lady Jupiter. Let's call her Lady Saturn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your step 0 would be to figure out what I want and draw me up some sort of blueprint, right?
Yeah.
And you would charge me for that service.
Yeah.
Well, how come developers can't do that anymore? Or maybe developers in this state can't do it anymore?
Your analogy is sort of apt, because in the tiny home movement, there are people literally building their own RVs on the back of trailers, their sheds essentially, that can move, and people are taking that on now. It is. What happens, I really believe, is when an industry goes mainstream and successful, I really think the shift occurs, because then the entire industry that supports it is adapted now. It is all moved. So I came from an era where really early on, the programs that we bought to run the computer systems were just astronomically expensive. It wasn't unheard of us to spend $200,000 on licensing software for a year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that world it exists in the enterprise, that's still held out there, but in the consumer space or anywhere people that feel like they kind of understand it, I don't think it's held. That's all crumbled away.
Well, what that says to me is that we are likely to get super fragile, super disposable Dixie Cup style software.
It seems I do feel like that's what we have now. Like my issues I was talking about with Android earlier, I think it feels like software quality has not
gone down.
Yeah, it definitely has not increased with the pace and improvements of hardware. All around me, I am constantly plagued by bad software in nearly every aspect. Now, I am a hypercritical person who notices lots of little flaws, but I mean in like entertainment stacks, in set-top boxes, in embedded systems that manage my generator, in systems here at the studio, in the interfaces we use to produce these shows, and the operating systems at every level. Things have not progressed the way I would have imagined they would in the 80s and 90s. I honestly thought we were on a solid upswing trajectory, but what ends up happening is priorities change, things get thrown out, things get restarted, people leave, and it just seems to be. I mean, it's why the robots will beat us.
Who was it? Mark Andreessen, or maybe I'm misquoting the tribute, but there was a line. It was a great blog post from about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. They promised us flying cars. Instead, we got Twitter. Right. And that was the title. Some VC wrote that kind of, I don't know how to phrase this, but kind of criticizing the startup industry. And, I feel the same way, right? In the 90s, I remember watching Stargate and being like, yes, we are going to fight snake people in space. It's going to happen, and it's going to be Egyptian, and it's going to be great and horrible at the same time. Because if you've ever seen the first season of Stargate, some scary snake people.
I would say this, though. We are very good at taking what we have today and saying this is what it'll be like 20 years down the road, and saying, so these cars that drive on the road, one day they'll fly, and that'll be progress. But those same things, like Back to the Future didn't predict the smartphone. And I don't mean to overplay the smartphone, but it is.
Oh, but Star Trek did.
To a degree, yeah. It is rather remarkable, but they still envisioned a separate communicator and a tricorder and a separate camera. Like, they didn't quite all put it together. But my point is like, it is rather remarkable the level of connectivity we do have now, the amount of sophistication that we can put in a computer in our pocket. We didn't really foresee this, and it has enabled some pretty great stuff. I might give it up for flying cars, but just barely.
So can I put on my unfiltered / Republican hat for a moment?
Do I need to fry any bacon, or
I don't think you need bacon. I think if you have anything, if you have the Eagle, I mean, if he's on tap, pour me a 24 ounce.
There you go, sir. You also got a little Megan Kelly for
OMG,
you.
OMG, OMG.
There you go.
Oh, Robert Ale, whatever his name is. Ale. Maybe this is a side effect, and I would encourage anyone who's interested to read any modern book by any reasonable economist, i.e. not someone crazy liberal or crazy conservative, because they're both wrong, about how the post-World War II era was actually a aberration in terms of income growth and innovation. And I mean innovation in not the Silicon Valley. Oh my God, I've innovated by allowing you to upload a GIF to Twitter.
Disruption.
The innovation of, hey, shithead, now we have color TV, or hey, electric cars, right? Like real innovation.
Mm-hmm.
That period post-World War II was actually an anomaly. It was caused by one country effectively ruling the world. And now that things are changing in a very sad post-colonial way, for the US at least, we're getting down to much smaller concerns, right? You know, it's not we're going to cure cancer anymore. It's we're going to hook up on Tinder because we're awesome and we're from San Francisco and New York and we're cool. Can you tell I don't like startup people? Are you feeling the
or San Francisco or New York apparently?
I really don't like New York or San Francisco. You know, I spent a lot of time in New York for business, and paying $17 for a beer gets real old real fast. Yeah. Right?
I was a straight up fan of downtown Seattle, and then the pricing. Yeah, it's expensive in Seattle too. Hey,
I have to admit, I like Fisherman's Wharf in San Fran, but
do you think we should mention your visit to Release Notes?
Speaking of places that people don't like me.
So Indianapolis.
Well, they like me in Indianapolis.
Oh, okay.
Me and Donald Trump are fairly popular there. The general state of Indiana.
How far are you flying? How are you getting there? You driving? What's your...
I was thinking about driving.
Yeah, that's a long drive, though. Holy crap.
Dude, I drove... Get that map back here. Go to central New Jersey, right there, right on the coast.
Yeah.
No, right to the coast of New Jersey. I went to drag all the way down to the middle coast of Florida.
Oh my gosh, you did that? You drove that?
3 times.
How long was that?
Heavy on the metal, I think it was like 14 or 15 hours.
Yeah, man. Boy,
straight. Like a champion, like a true
That really is impressive because my longest stretches are like 12, 14 hours, and that's in an RV where I could pull over for 10 minutes and go make a sandwich.
No, you just poop on the side of the road, man, like a champion.
I bring my toilet with me and my poo. That's true. I do. I haul that around. It's heavy too.
Is it legal to cross state lines with feces? I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't make you dump before you cross state lines. You just bring your poo from one state to the other state.
Wait, that's not a thing?
No.
Who was that guy?
No.
So anyway, I will be attending the Release Notes conference, and for anybody who asks and says I'm crazy, I did actually pay for this ticket.
And it's not cheap.
No, I paid more than I wanted to for this ticket. In fact, if I knew anybody, I would have gotten one for free.
Release Notes 2016 happening September 27th through the 29th.
In Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So this is a conference for iOS app developers who are trying to make independent businesses. I plan to storm the stage at some point and tell them that it's hopeless and the App Store economy is dead.
And then, like Alex Jones, as you're being hauled off the stage, just shout, Coder Radio! Coder Radio! Coder Radio!
I know exactly the clip you're talking about, too. That's fantastic. And the Young Turks is just full of shit. Let's just...
Oh, man.
They have no viewers. It's okay.
That was a very fun video to watch, though. I would love to... I'll love when you get back to hear about it. So that'll be really cool. It'll be neat. So
it's a little different kind of... in fact, I should have said this.
Who puts it on? Do you know? Is it like a company?
Yeah, it's... no, it's the Release Notes show. It's... I think it's like Menton... It's a bunch of Apple guys.
Cool. So like a community kind of thing. To a degree.
Yes, but it does have a lot of... I mean, it's pretty commercial now.
But I mean, it's something that's not put on by like Apple or like some sort of conference company.
Yeah, it's not a platform vendor or a toolkit vendor. But I have to say, I looked at the... this will be... To be fair, this will be my first Release Notes because the first one that was reasonable for me to travel to. Previously, they didn't have such big sponsors. Now a lot of big dev shops sponsor them.
And you feel like they're going to make it worth that ticket price. I mean, when the ticket price is that high, there's some expectation that it's going to be there's going to be some... you want at least double the value, maybe.
I immediately had second thoughts on buying the ticket, actually.
Yeah. However, if people do go, there's people that are there really want to be there.
People are passionate, but I don't know that these are people I can sell to, right? Because
no, I don't think so. But you might get really valuable information.
I'm hoping the beer is good, to be honest with you.
Yeah, maybe the food too.
So I was actually just at DevCon 5 in New York too a couple weeks ago that I did not say on the air.
Oh yeah,
because I was taking meetings and I you know how I am, Chris.
Sneaky.
But No, I only went for half the conference.
Yeah, and you didn't want to. Yeah, if you don't. Yeah, that is true. I sometimes go to things that don't say anything because I don't want. Yeah. I've done that too. I know what you mean, especially when you just want to get in and out. Yep.
I went to the sessions I wanted to go to, but DEF CON 5 was right up in New York. It was only an hour train ride, so I kind of did something horrible. I went to the sessions I wanted to go to, and then ninja'd my way out of there.
Nice, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've been to enough of these things. Mm-hmm. The only good conferences are the ones that System 76 goes to. Send me that goddamn laptop.
Yeah, right? All right, Mr. Dominic, is there anything else we should cover on this week's episode of the Coder Radio program?
No, I mean, I missed the 70s. I wasn't alive, but I missed the 70s.
You have the general sense.
I miss the feeling, the drugs,
Sure. Well, you know what? We miss you, audience. Send us in your thoughts, jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact, or go to coderradio.reddit.com. You'll find a feedback thread. You can follow me on Twitter and tweet at me. It's actually a pretty high probability of getting my response at ChrisLAS, sort of your best chance. And Mr. Dominic, are you promoting any Twitter handles this week?
Oh yeah, go to Buccaneer Tech and DominicM.com, and pro tip, that promo is real, $500 D&D. You get everything you need to get your app or website project, or web app rather, project started.
Get it done right. Check it out, everybody. Thanks for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio, and we'll see you right back here next week.